What's good, everybody? It's your boy Hans.
And this is Tristan.
Welcome to the Hans and Tristan podcast. Tristan, we have a special guest with us here today. Mr. Oronde Yero is here joining us today on the Hans and Tristan podcast. He is a good, dear friend and former co-worker and colleague of ours. We've been in the trenches together, worked together in the mental health field, and we thought it'd be great to have him on our show today. So say what's up to the people, Mr. Oronde.
What's up, everybody? What's up? I'm glad to be here. Been waiting. I'm finally here.
See, you thought I was gonna be the one throwing shade first.
Oh, wow.
But I'm really glad to be here.
You'll fit in great, Oronde. Throwing shots in. Oh man, as you can see, he's he's quick with it. He's quick with it. Excellent to have you here today, sir. Thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. So today we'll be talking about parenting and co-parenting in general and in times like these, because COVID has put a wrinkle on a lot of things, and I don't think parenting within itself is any exception, especially co-parenting as well. So I just thought that this would be a great topic to talk about, because I know all of us really care about the family system. We care about kids in general. I know I'm not a parent, so I don't have as much to say personally or share personally in regards to parenting, but I know both of you guys are, and just from working with both of you, I know you take a lot of what you do and what you see with your kids into your work. And that's one thing that I think makes you guys a great therapist, amongst the myriad of other things that makes you guys great therapists. But you guys really bring a piece of what you've been through and what you have experienced with your family, with your children, into your practice and your therapeutic process. And I think that's golden. So I just want to start there. How do you think parenting or being a parent has affected you as a therapist? Any of you guys can answer, and we'll go from there.
I'm gonna let the guest go first. I say guest very loosely.
Yes. Well, thank you. How has parenting impacted me as a therapist?
Yes, sir.
In many ways, actually, but I think one area is I'm much more mindful of what I do. It's funny because it's almost like I could say it in the reverse. Being a therapist has affected my parenting, and my parenting has affected, being a therapist. I know now that when there's things that I say to parents and how it lands, one of the things I think about is like the conversations around medication. And when I experienced a time when I had to consider putting one of my children on medication, I felt so bad. And I didn't realize it as a therapist when I would just throw that out there, like, you ever considered medication for your child? It didn't register how guilty a parent can feel. Like you feel like a failure. You feel like somehow you did something wrong. And so there are different ways I could answer it, but that's the first thing that it created more empathy for the parents that I work with. And then as a parent, I became a little bit more conscious of what I say and what I do. And I know not the long-term impact that things can happen when you lose your temper and stuff like that.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. My daughter will tell you in a minute, like, you ain't no therapist at home. You don't tell me, or you don't do with me what you do with your clients. I be like, girl, bye. So part of it is recognizing that sometimes you are a hypocrite and you don't take your own advice.
Yeah.
But backtracking and rectifying it, right? So yes, I do lose my temper like most parents. And it's going back and using the skills that you teach your other parents and implementing them in your own home. And knowing that it's okay to mess up, because that's what you're going to do as a parent. But going back and fixing it is the bigger component. And then, like you said, just using your experience as a parent dealing with your clients. Because, like you said, it's easy as a therapist, like, oh, well, won't you try this? Won't you try that? And then in your head, you be like, oh my God, if someone came to me and told me this as a parent, and you tell me, like, don't take it personal. I take everything as a parent personal.
Everything personal. Yeah.
Like, would you say I
Yeah.
ain't a good parent? You'd be like, what?
Absolutely. I can relate to that. I know how, like, even when my mother will say, "Hey, have you thought about doing this?" And I'm like, "So what you trying to say? You trying to
Listen,
say I'm doing something wrong?" No, they're just giving a suggestion. So I know when I make suggestions to parents, they probably process that too, that they're thinking somehow this is a critique and not just an addition to.
listen, because I moved 10 hours away from my family because they kept giving advice. Too many
Yes.
chiefs, not enough Indians. I need
Yes,
everyone to fall back.
it's true. It's true.
Everyone.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's complex, especially co-parenting. I know personally, I tell like a lot of my single moms, like, no one has a baby with the intentions of being a single mom or a single dad. Like, that's never your intentions when you bring a child into the world, but it happens. But co-parenting during COVID, for me, I'm gonna be honest with you, it's been easy breezy because her father's in Phoenix, and I had him blocked for 2 years. She talks to him. I'm cool. So I don't know if the zombie apocalypse is next, but I think we're gonna get through that co-parenting as well.
Yeah. Co-parenting has been, it does require that you use the skills that you learn as a therapist, because, you have your judgments, you have your history, your pain sometimes from those relationships, you have trust issues with that person, you also have sometimes value differences, and how you kind of negotiate that with the goal of doing right by the children. It can be difficult because sometimes even you might emphasize certain things and they don't, and you want to have that consistency no matter which household they're in, and that can cause conflict, whether it be homework or hygiene or whatever it might be. You might be more disciplined or less disciplined or whatever, and it can definitely cause conflict. So you need to have some of those skills to have those conversations, not only with the parent, but the grandparent.
And the child as well, because one thing I learned, and that was my frustration when my child was a lot younger, right? So you're trying to set these rules and guidelines and your potty training and sleep training and whatever other training they got going on out there, and you just want to keep a consistency, because we all know that's how children learn, by consistency. But it became such a power struggle trying to get this other parent on board with that, because they were more focused on me as opposed to the child. So what I had to do to combat that was, instead of focusing on them, I put that on my child. And it's unfortunate that you have to put that on a child. Like, hey, you know what you need to do. I need you to try to do it. But at some point, you got to put that on them and create that independence, especially when you know that parent is not really focused about what needs to fucking happen because they stupid.
Wow. Like I said, shots fired. Shots fired.
Shots fired.
I held on as long as I possibly could. I think I did damn good. We got to the first 10 minutes without me bashing.
You did. It could have been a lot worse. It could have been a lot
you.
worse. So you did.
It was very sick.
But what I will say is, honestly, and this is no shade even from me, I just don't know how you guys do it. So I'm newly married, new in this game out here, and I honestly couldn't fathom co-parenting. I even struggle with just the parenting, because like Aronde said, a lot has to align, right? And at the end of the day, no two people, as much as they agree, are totally alike. Nobody really shares the same, values on every single thing. So even when they're from similar homes and similar religious backgrounds, their value sets may differ a little bit, which is going to take some skills from both people to kind of figure out how that looks in their relationship. So just today, I'll even share, I had an issue, argument or whatever, disagreement with my wife about how to care for the dogs. So I can't even imagine what this would look like when it comes to kids. You get what I'm saying? It really takes a lot of work.
Well, word on the street is happy wife, happy life. But I've never been married, so I don't know.
Happy spouse, happy house.
Right. Thank you. I like that one better. It needs to be updated. Right. Thank you. But it's just, just something as simple as that, right? So I just couldn't for me, that's a lot of work that you have to be willingly to, like, you have to be willingly to walk into that. So a lot of people I'm seeing a lot of people just go into these relationships and have babies and just go into it all freestyle like, and just whatever happens. But like, for me, given that this is a child's life that's in your hands, this is somebody that you're molding and shaping, and you're really imprinting your values, your belief on their character, whether you believe it or not, it's actually happened, right? So think about how many things we do because we saw our parents or relatives or whoever brought us up.
That we don't do because we saw our parents or relatives.
Exactly.
Doing it. Yeah. So that makes a major difference in how you do things. I know for me, I do the complete opposite of what I saw. I do the total opposite because I'm just like, oh, they're tripping. If I knew about DFACS or CPS, I would have been called on their asses because this can't be life. But sadly, that's how it is in a lot of Black homes. We pass down these traits and traditions and not understanding that it affects the whole dynamic of the family system. So like for me, a lot of people are like, well, I don't spank my child. And they're like, oh, you're Black. Why don't you spank your child? Like it's like a rite of passage to beat your child.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can. I think
I'm not
Hans.
sure. I think Hans froze.
Yeah, Hans is out of here.
Yeah.
But it's okay. We're gonna keep rolling.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, I'm phasing out spanking. I'm kind of old school. There are certain things I feel like, just don't quite get it. And but I do understand that. The biggest things that I think about is where you just have like different, it's not always like values, sometimes it's focus.
Yeah.
There's things like I might be much more disciplined or focused on, hey, let's have an ordered day. Whereas, their mom might be, let's make sure we're doing activities.
Right.
And, so there's just differences that you don't even realize. And I was going to say something to Hans. I don't know if he's back yet, but I was going to say that some of it you really don't know until you're in it.
Yeah, it's like a club. Like some things you just aren't going to experience until you're actually in the midst of everything that's going on. And the reality is, even if you think you do know, shit change because people change. People change.
Sometimes it changes because of the type of child you have. Sometimes it's circumstances in the marriage or in the relationship. It's all kinds of factors that you would never imagine would come up.
Right, but I'm gonna be honest with you, my situation is a blessing because I don't have that dynamic of co-parenting, quote unquote. Like I keep them in a loop. Like tell your father this is when you graduate. Tell your father this going on. Like other than that. But right now we're in a situation because Genesis' 16th birthday is coming up. And I want to throw her a party. Me and him haven't thrown a party together since her first birthday, and it ended very urban. Okay, yes, because like you plan a whole party as a woman, you plan a whole party, you plan everything. And again, this is about your child. So you invite the other parent because it's not about you and how you feel about the other parent, it's about the child. But then the other parent makes it about them. And it's just like, you're not going to ruin my child's situations like that. So since then, we haven't really, we did our 8th birthday together. I think we were like skating or something like that. But again, I plan everything, he show up. At this point, I'm just like, you do what you want to do. I do what I want to do. So now he wants to show up to the 16th birthday. And I'm just like, but you haven't been to any other birthday party since. Yeah. So why do you want to come? Like you want to come to the big events, but what about the 11th birthday when she turned 14? Like things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And you want to protect your child from negative experiences.
Even if it's the other parent.
Yeah. It's true.
I'm sorry, Hans is back.
Sorry guys. Power just went out. Randomly, power just went out. So
I was like, you ain't got no kids, so let's just
right. It was like, listen, man, sit this one out. Let Tristan and Aronde handle this. And I was like, okay, well, cool, because power is never gone out here. There's no storms. It's bright and sunny outside, so I have no idea what happened.
I was you said dog.
Right. Y'all arguing about dogs. Like that's what's happening right now. This was full bowl kids. So That's wild. I'm sorry, guys. I apologize
That's
for
all
my
right.
brief exit. It was technical
It's
difficulties.
sabbatical.
Yes. I just took it. I needed another vacation. That's what it was.
Clearly. Clearly.
I needed a break. But thank you guys for keeping the show going. And you bring a good, I just thought about something though, what you were talking about, life events, right? And to me, that's actually another example of where values often kind of differ and are because at the end of the day, you want to celebrate what you deem to be important in the child's life, and you want to uplift what you think, will definitely help them flourish and help them be great. But what do you do when your co-parent partner doesn't feel the same way and doesn't support you? So it's also imperative. Oh, okay. Well, it's also imperative that at the end of the day, you need to be on the same page in regards to parenting. And I don't think people understand how to put everything else aside, because as we learn or see in society, a lot of things bleed and merge together. But at the end of the day, you have a duty and a responsibility chiefly to your child. Yeah. And if you're not in a relationship, then yes, therefore your relationship doesn't have to be, you get what I mean? Like, doesn't have to be put at the forefront. But you have to really be on the same page as a parent team. And oftentimes people don't know what that looks like. Like, do you sit down and say, hey, what are we going to do here? Or what happens if you were together before and then you're just like, okay, we're not together now. How does parenting look like? Because in my belief, or at least from what it looks like on the outside, I think it's easier to co-parenting when you start off co-parenting versus when you were in a relationship and then the relationship dissolves or ends for whatever reason. And now you have to shift to co-parenting. Am I incorrect? Am I correct?
I think it's rare. Those situations are rare because how often is someone going to have a baby outside of a relationship where y'all not?
Which situation is rare?
Like where you're already co-parenting beforehand.
Oh, so where you start off co-parenting? Yeah,
like where you start off co-parenting, because most times it's like just because you live under the same roof doesn't mean you're really co-parenting, or just because you're in a relationship doesn't mean you're co-parenting. Because even the whole point of me leaving my child's father is because I was parenting by myself. Like, you're there, you're physically there, you're taking pictures, you're posting them on social media like you're there, but all of it fell on me. So I'm like, well, if I'm gonna do it alone, I might as well be alone.
Yeah, but I understand what you're referencing, Hans. I think there's still changes, like even when the relationship changes, the parenting changes. Mm-hmm. Because there's things that, like, for instance, I don't like paperwork. Y'all know that from work. But I also don't like it in my personal life. I don't, if there's a form that needs to be filled out, whether it be for the kids or not, I would usually say, hey, can you handle that? And it would not even be something we discuss. It'd just be like, I don't like dealing with that kind of stuff. So she would handle it. But now, because we're not together, I have to be responsible for things that I used to not have to be responsible for. And it's little things. It's not necessarily the big ones, but like when you're talking about planning school, for instance, and making those meetings and do those type of things. Now your relationship has changed, and so you morph into something new. That's really my point. And so even though it can be different, whether you were co-parenting initially or not, it's still a different animal. And then when the children go through, when you have the gender differences, then you also have the type of child you have and the age of the child. There's like a lot of factors.
And then you also have the factor that if one adult is not over the relationship.
Yeah.
That's a major component, because the relationship could end, but that doesn't mean everyone is over it.
And the feelings, there's bitterness or sometimes there. And the other thing is schedules. Like, like I said, now that I'm co-parenting, but when they're with me, they're with me. I'm parenting by myself. You know what I'm saying? So if I need to go to the store, I got to take them with me. Everything I got to do, I have to now do it as an individual, versus before I could say, hey, I'm about to go do this. I got to run to Lowe's. I got to run to this. I got to run these errands. Now I got to okay, I'm going to handle this 11-year-old in Lowe's and keep them from touching something.
Right.
They look like a whole store, a playground of them.
Yes. Right. So, things do morph into a new relationship.
It's okay. It gets greater later when they're teenagers. You can just leave them like, I'm going to Lowe's. I'll be back.
Yeah,
Don't
I'm
get go
looking
for
forward to
nobody.
that. I'm looking forward to that, but I'm not there yet. I'm a good ways off.
Yeah, it's okay. It's coming. Just have faith. But I mean it, and I'm gonna be honest with you, like to me, I've always had to do everything from schools to camps. Even when she's with her father, he's like, what size shoe she wear? She right there with you. What do you go? Does she have any allergies? How the hell you don't know if your child got like, you know what I'm saying? But that the beauty of doing it all is that you're really in the loop across the board, you know?
Yeah.
And as I tell everyone else, grandmas, aunties, you know, baby daddies, you gotta pay the cost to be the boss. So who the hell trouble me? Nobody.
I agree. The other thing is that also when I look at it from the standpoint of the child needs to be able to see variations of responsibility that's being taken. You know, even if you have a, say if you have a daughter like you do, it would be good for her to see a father actively participating. It would be good to see the active negotiation between you, even though you're not together, being able to model good negotiation and conflict resolution and doing
Absolutely.
things for the greater good. Those things are,
Imperative
there's a
skills
lot of
anyway.
times that I have to say, this ain't about me. This is about the child. Like I have to kind of remind myself, like, I might be angry. I might want to curse somebody out, or I might want to say something a certain kind of way. But I'm like, no, I got to do it a way because the children are watching and they're going to learn how to deal with conflict and learn how to deal with this. This is uncomfortable.
Right, but
Everything is
that's only
uncomfortable.
if you have a willing partner to show them healthy
Yeah.
skills, right? So if the other person is not a willing participant, or they lack them those skills to begin with, which is why y'all not together,
Yeah.
is like that makes a major difference. But in turn, they can still learn the skills. Like even with my daughter, like I had to teach her negotiation because if you haven't negotiated with a teenager, a teenage girl, it's like a hostile terrorist. You're like, oh my God, please just do the fucking dishes. But you teach them skills within themselves. So yes, it's good to see two parents modeling those skills, and that's what our ideal clients would be: two parents modeling these skills for children, which they wouldn't even need us anymore. But in the real world, you can learn from anybody. And that's the beautiful part of being a parent is, again, recognizing you are the first teacher and taking the steps to better yourself to better your child. Because I could easily, like we were talking about beforehand, curse my daughter out, degrade her, record myself smacking the shit out of her and uploading it to social media. But then, am I really doing more harm than good? Like you're really degrading your child and you're oppressing your child to teach him what kind of lesson?
Yeah.
Not to fuck with you? Like.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, there's also the power dynamics. I just believe in an ideal sense, I kind of believe that like all of us provide a certain amount of it's kind of like nutrients. Like every person offers a child, whether it be a dad, whether it be an uncle, whether it be a grandparent, they offer something to that child's development. And sometimes that person has issues, but they can still add value. You understand what I'm saying? So we all have that uncle that ain't right, but he'll protect you. He'll make sure nobody don't mess with you on your way to school. You know what I'm saying? So you might not let your kid hang out with Uncle such and such for a lot, but it's good for your child to know that uncle got their back. You know what I'm saying? So, and as a parent, sometimes you're negotiating these relationships, whether it be grandparents, whether it be friends or godparents, these type of things. And you don't want to cut out people that could add some value, but if they are going to hurt your child, you do want to limit and maybe sometimes.
Where my scissors at? Where my scissors at so I can show you how many people I did cut out? Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
I'm the chop. Like you can, everyone can have access to my child because these are the same people that raised me.
Yeah.
So I already know their assets, and limitations when it comes. So if the asset is not as great as, whatever it is you're bringing, like, nah, then you gotta go.
Yeah.
Like we know of you. We see you at the family reunion, but as far as you being part of our family cluster, like, And that's just me because I know my family, and I know I also come from a family of addicts and
I
fees.
got you. Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, nah. But still knowing how to deal with every type of person is imperative. Because everyone isn't gonna be all, Care Bear and all the other shit. Like you gotta really know how to deal with different people. And I think that's where their social interaction comes in. But that still need to be monitored too.
Yeah, definitely.
So my question now is, given that we've talked about family and support, which I think is definitely important in any type of relationship, but like you said, as parents, you have to be responsible in monitoring who comes in, interaction with your child and what they're bringing to your child and your family system and everything like that. How is that monitored now, given that COVID is an issue now? So, for example, I saw somebody posted basically saying, if you're out here in these streets going in and out of every club and everything like that during COVID, you're not coming anywhere near my child or myself, and I don't care who you are, So given what we have going on with this pandemic and how there's different views, and there's actually people protesting against pandemic restrictions, how do you guys as parents monitor social interaction with your kids right now?
It's a good question. What I'm doing, like for instance, with grandparents, my parents have totally different attitudes about COVID right now. One is hyper vigilant, and one is like, "Hey, what pandemic? What are we talking about?" And they both, when I go to say my mother's house, she has it posted: wash your hands, wear your mask, all these things, stay in certain rooms, all these set of stuff. And so it does make you determine who is worth spending time with. You do have to. So, of course you want them to have, because we don't know when we're going to be out of this. So you can't say they'll never go to such and such, but you may have to now think about how much time, and all the precautions that you may have to take. I think the real thing, I'm gonna try to keep this part short, but the real thing is really about, it makes you really think about the value of all of those relationships and whether they're worth the risk. So now it's like, cousin such and such, you can wait. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you do have to do it. But then there's the loneliness factor or the disconnection factor, which you have to now account for with Zoom and WhatsApp and social media in order to kind of fill that void. But there ain't nothing like touch and proximity, Yeah.
Well, I just had my sister flying from DC, so she was chilling with us. My other line sister came in from Vegas. She was chilling
Big
with
Sis
us.
was in town?
Like I had a house.
You ain't telling me? That's messed up. That's cool. Whatever.
2 Pisces. I was in here like num your But I mean, as far like I have a teenager, you know what I'm saying? So we take our precautions, wear your mask, put your gloves, wash your hands, But I also teach her don't live in fear. Be cautious how you move and do what you need to do. Like she was invited to a party last night, she didn't go. You know what I'm saying? Because she's like, nah, all their parents tested positive for COVID, even though they ain't got it. Nah, it's too risky. But she also just went on a date 2 weeks ago. So, it's like you pick and choose again, and you choose wisely, but then you also don't want to keep shoving this fear factor down their throat. Like you be cautious, you move, cautiously, but again, like you don't move in fear. So, and then who she wants to be around is really up to her. Because if she don't feel like fucking being bothered, she's just gonna stay in her room.
Like her mother. Got it.
Yes, we're the most antisocial people you've ever met.
Social, antisocial.
Got you. Another one. So both of you guys are Black. So during these times right now that we're in, not only COVID, but where racial tensions are heightened and more exposed, are you guys finding yourself having to have more discussions in regards to race relations, involvement with police officials, with your kids, since all of this has kind of been magnified in the media?
I definitely have. I remember when I went to get my son from Houston, and he was like, "Dad, do you know what a Karen is?"
Yeah.
That's like when he threw me off at first. I was like, what? No. And then I was like, oh, you a Karen. Okay. And he was like, yeah. And he's trying to explain it to me. And I'm like, okay, so he's very aware of some of the things that's going on socially. I guess, you can't go on YouTube or whatever and not see some things. But I have had those conversations around what's happening. Because also I listen to a lot of news online, and so they're often in the car or around me, and so they do know and they're aware. And I try to not teach fear, just like you were saying, Tristan, but I teach awareness.
Absolutely.
And being vigilant, being mindful that we're living in some funny times. So things, one of the areas that it comes up is when they don't want to eat food. I'm like, you see what's going on out there? You don't want to eat this food.
It's starving kids in Africa.
Like we under a pandemic. You talking about you don't want to eat that food? You better eat that food.
But no, I think as a mother of a female, you kind of have these conversations from the time they enter daycare, from, good touch, bad touch, like all the way up until they go up to college to, being mindful of someone putting something in your drink and And I think as a Black woman, you always got to teach that vigilance like you talked about. So unfortunately with, the Black Lives Matter thing, and you already know how I feel about Black women and us being unprotected. But because of that dynamic, having those conversations with your child, especially, again, a female child, is imperative, because not only do you have to fear the authorities, but you also sometimes got to fear the person you're dating because of their toxic traits and things that they were taught. So just constantly having those conversations. And honestly, she bring a lot of things to my attention, like with, celebrities trying to use these matters to become famous or drop an album or, and she'll bring these things to me and just, we'll have these discussions, thank God. But just being a parent of a Black child, period, is like, you can't wait till things happen to have conversations. You got to have the conversations to ensure it doesn't happen.
Yeah, and definitely, with whether it be Black boys, Black girls, having that conversation of being racially profiled. And one of the biggest things, you understand it, but it's not until it happens that you realize how dehumanizing it is, and you feel like I don't have any negative intent. And here, if you've ever been accused of doing something wrong when you didn't do it, that feeling where you can't prove, you can't say anything that will convince the person that you didn't steal something from her. So to be racially profiled is to be assumed to be a criminal or to have negative intent. And so for a child, that's traumatizing. That experience can be traumatizing. So to have preemptive conversations so that they know what kind of environment they're living in, so that it doesn't come as a shock. But it's always kind of interesting because you're trying to, like my son, he's very inquisitive, and sometimes you feel like, am I giving him too much information?
No.
You know what I'm saying?
So let me tell you something. Racial profiling doesn't start in the community, because my daughter had situations at her school where she was stopped and frisked for having a taser, and she didn't even have a taser. But someone said, oh, the light-skinned Black girl at that table, when it's a million light-skinned Black girls. Yeah. But she got stopped for having a taser, and they checked her bag and everything else. And the following year, her school again pulled her to the side. Oh, we heard someone saying the bathroom smelled like smoke, and we saw you come out the bathroom. Yeah. Really? So the racial profiling doesn't begin once they hit the community. It starts in the school system all the way down to diagnosing all these little Black boys with ADHD and everything else. And sadly, that's what our children have to experience, and that's what they have to become accustomed to. Like you said, guilty and proven innocent. Like, how do you prove you ain't smoked something? Like, how do you prove that other than you drug testing me on the spot? Like, how do you prove all these things? Like, but I'm guilty automatically because of the color of my skin, and I was in the wrong place. Yeah. And that's something our children constantly have to deal with, even prior to the police. That them playing, being kids in public spaces sometimes is viewed as criminal, disruptive, those type of things. So as a parent, I'm very cognizant of that,
And at the same time, you don't want to acquiesce to that kind of oppression and say, well, let me make sure my children are acting good so that, you know, particularly white folks feel comfortable. No, but you want your children to be aware of what kind of dynamics are happening so they're not blindsided. This is why you can't teach racial, I don't see color kind of thing. Yes, you may not, but the world does.
Exactly.
And so they have to become aware of it. And it's unfortunate because it's very unfair, and children especially for children in like middle school and elementary, they're very keen on what's on the sense of fairness and what's unfair and
Absolutely.
what's good. And so it can be a shock to the system. Why would they think that about me? And then you have to tell them. So yeah, it can be some heavy conversations to have with a 6-year-old or 11-year-old, but I think it's better to have it than to not have it and they be blindsided by it and having to try to unpack that for them so that they can understand it.
Absolutely.
Definitely. And it's a fine line for you guys as parents to have to balance. So the line between teaching awareness and how you're viewed, or the perception of you by virtue of your color, versus how you should process that and not let it manifest into some type of fear. So I was listening to a snippet somebody shared with me of a podcast. I forgot it. I definitely forgot the podcast, but I'll shout it out next week. It was a good one, centered towards ladies actually. But she was just saying that we have to be mindful of the narratives that are ingrained into us, these narratives of fear, right? So oftentimes as Black parents or people in the Black community, when we're trying to pay certain ideals forward, what we call awareness can sometimes manifest into others as fear. So it's imperative as parents that you not only bring that awareness, but you bring something else to stuff, you know, alongside with it as well, into their true abilities, into their true potential. So they're not only aware of the perception that others see of them, but are aware of their potential and how they can thrive throughout this foolishness that's going on in the United States. And I just give it up to you guys because I truly and honestly believe that parenting is one of the hardest jobs, if not the hardest jobs out there. And my hat goes to both of you guys, not only because I know you guys and I know you guys are passionate and give 100% to your kids all the time, but you guys are doing this in a world where anything can happen at a moment's notice. And you guys as parents have to shift and, you know, figure out how I'm going to help my child process that. And you've already laid the groundwork and foundation to kind of help them to do some of that processing themselves. And I give it up to you guys. One thing I will say when people ask me, you know, why are you not considering kids or why have you had kids yet? I'm going to be honest. That's one of the scariest things you can do in life. It's one of the scariest things you can do. I don't know how people let their kids out of their sights and don't feel like just paranoia and just like crazy. Like I'd be that kid in the window. Oh, you teach? Okay. All right. Like, like, you know, like it's to me, you know, it's crazy. And I have nieces and nephews, which is nothing like parenting, but just the love that I have for them, I know will be magnified tenfold if or when I have my child. So I definitely want to praise you guys and give you guys your flowers for being great parents and role models for future parents, because at the end of the day, your kids are living representations of you. And I also think if parents really thought that a lot, they would change a lot of their parenting styles and techniques. And we would see a lot of different parenting and a lot of different people out here, because like Tristan mentioned earlier in the podcast, we have these videos of these parents quote unquote disciplining their kids when they're really traumatizing their children. So I know wrapping up, I just want to thank you guys. Thank you, Aronde, for joining us. Sir, do you want to plug your social, your book? I know you're an author. Please let the people know how they can support you and reach you and what you got going on, sir.
Okay, so so I'm an author. My book is Self-Rule: Reclaiming Your Inner Life, Light, and Sovereign Self. You can get that at selfrule.arondeyero.com, or just go to arondeyero.com, ORONDEYERO.com, and you can at Aronde Yero if you want to catch me on social media, Instagram and Facebook.
Definitely. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Also, we'll be getting that info. We'll post it under our YouTube page as well and on our IG for those who missed it. But thank you so much for joining us, Aranda. We appreciate it, brother. It was good catching up with you, man. Good seeing you. Appreciate you giving us a little bit of your time. I know you're a busy man. For everybody else, thank you for joining us as always. You know, you can holla at the Hans and Tristan podcast, wherever podcasts are streamed or heard. Also, don't forget our YouTube channel, Hans and Tristan podcast on YouTube. Like, subscribe, tell all your friends, and we'll see you guys next week. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.